Why is it completely normal in Japan to see active 90-year-olds dynamically hiking and cycling, while elsewhere, age 60 represents the bleak threshold of heavy medications and chronic joint pain? The astonishing medical reality is that their longevity secret never resides inside expensive pharmaceuticals, but inside a biological operating framework that modern science just decoded through autophagy, the cellular self-eating mechanism. Today, I will expose the clinical protocol to activate autophagy right at home to systematically flush out cellular waste debris, shatter insulin resistance, and clear carotid arterial plaques permanently over your lifespan. The vast majority of chronic metabolic diseases today never stem from baseline nutrient deficits, but from deep cellular toxicity driven by the relentless overnutrition trap of modern lifestyles. When consuming energy continuously through constant snacking habits and 3 heavy meals daily, you force your vital internal organs to operate without resting. Your liver, kidneys, and especially your pancreas exhaust their biological capacity 24/7 like a decaying engine covered in carbon soot without ever undergoing diagnostic maintenance. Overloading your system with refined starches causes post-meal blood sugar metrics to spike abruptly. This mechanical sequence forces your pancreas to flood massive insulin volumes into circulation. Excessive insulin functions intensely as an anabolic hormone, commanding your cells to continuously grow, expand, and divide aggressively. Under the mechanical strain of chronic hyperinsulinemia, genetic replication errors begin to manifest rapidly. Mutated senescent cells and broken proteins fail to evacuate, accumulating to construct highly hazardous tumor architectures. If you find these medical insights truly meaningful, please click like and subscribe right now to motivate our team in producing more valuable health videos for everyone. Dining past the 80% fullness boundary completely locks your internal autophagy self-cleaning switch, transforming your cellular infrastructure into a massive stagnant landfill driving chronic systemic inflammation. Warning number 3 targets the continuous hyperactivation of the mTOR enzyme driven by heavy intakes of processed starches and free fructose. The mTOR pathway functions exactly like an aggressive architect specializing exclusively in construction and cellular expansion while completely shutting down your waste clearance mechanisms. The biological outcome involves toxic amyloid beta proteins accumulating inside your brain centers, driving Alzheimer's, alongside fragile atherosclerotic plaques expanding inside your carotid pathways. Lacking necessary fasting windows for digestion, overload your mitochondria, launching destructive free radicals that break cellular DNA strands. The revolutionary 2016 Nobel-prize discovery by Professor Yoshinori Osumi validated that the autophagy self-eating mechanism functions as the ultimate master key to longevity. When your physiology enters a state of controlled active hunger, cellular lysosomes collect and disintegrate toxic cellular waste debris, recycling them into fresh biological energy. The structural autophagy process, when consistently stimulated daily through brief fasting windows, thoroughly evacuates altered protein strands accumulated inside your cerebral cortex frameworks. It heavily suppresses low-grade systemic inflammation, eroding your neurons, aggressively promoting robust neuroplasticity updates down the chronological line. This represents the supreme rehabilitation strategy under modern American geriatric neurology frameworks to halt vascular dementia progression. Concurrently, toxic visceral fat layers wrapping around your liver are harvested by cellular cleaners to burn for fuel, fully restoring peripheral insulin sensitivity metrics. Core benefit number 2 originates directly from the traditional Hatch-Hadbu philosophy, which mandates stopping consumption at the 80% fullness boundary. This empty 20% gastric volume constructs the ideal biological space for your digestive enzymes to execute optimal functional breakdown. Stopping your consumption early coaxes your post-meal blood sugar metrics to travel along a smooth curve, keeping insulin profiles stabilized over time. This mechanical process entirely eliminates early morning cerebrovascular spasms, perfectly protecting the smooth endothelial integrity of your entire cardiovascular framework against plaque accumulations. Core benefit number 3 delivers a massive biological cascade of vitamin K2 and vital nutrients from traditional fermented inputs like natto or miso. This organic vitamin K2 component operates exactly like an exceptionally wise biological roadmap, actively stimulating osteocalcins and proteins to capture free circulating calcium ions drifting inside your bloodstream, successfully directing them straight into your skeletal bone matrix. Evacuating stagnant calcium deposits keeps your endothelial lining smooth, permanently blocking carotid arterial hardening behind the neck pathways, successfully halting catastrophic recurrent embolic stroke risks from afar. Core benefit number 4 centers on the potent polyphenol antioxidant compounds concentrated inside organic green tea to clear free radicals. Please click like, subscribe to the channel, and drop your personal health updates in the comments below to motivate our upcoming clinical lessons. Active egg crosses the tight blood-brain barrier to accelerate your baseline metabolism, heavily suppressing chronic systemic inflammatory cytokines, perfectly protecting your intracranial white matter architecture to sustain peak cognitive sharpness. Core benefit number 5 focuses on deep spiritual peace and maintaining an explicit purpose to wake up every single morning. Ikigai. When your mindset connects deeply alongside a supportive community, your sympathetic fight or flight nervous framework is completely deactivated. Your adrenal glands cease flooding cortisol stress hormones into your circulation. Low cortisol levels keep your vasculature gently dilated, entirely lifting mechanical shear stress, straining your endothelial framework, coaxing your physiology into its supreme baseline state of structural DNA self-repair. Actionable management step number 1 to personally rescue your cellular infrastructure from biological landfills involves the protocol of delaying breakfast for 1 to 2 hours. Immediately upon leaving your bed, instead of consuming a heady meal that triggers insulin spikes, drink a large glass of warm water and extend your fasting window. This represents the golden window allowing cellular lysosome cleaners to thoroughly finalize their overnight evacuation of waste protein debris, granting your vasculature clean biological space. Actionable management step number 2 delivers exceptional synergy, incorporating a warm cup of organic, unsweetened green tea early in the morning routine. The active egg components interacting alongside a fasting state construct a powerful biological surge that doubles the operational velocity of your autophagy mechanisms, accelerating the combustion of toxic visceral fat wrapping around your liver. This lifestyle protocol frees cellular mitochondria from oxidative strain, maximizing rich oxygenated blood delivery propelled upward through your carotid arteries. Actionable management step number 3 mandates strictly adhering to the sequenced dining framework modeled after whole food Mediterranean choices during lunch. Initiate your meal by consuming a plate of steamed dark green vegetables alongside a traditional probiotic-rich miso soup framework first. This high volume of soluble dietary fiber arriving inside your stomach constructs a dense biological gel mesh coating your small intestinal mucosa, severely delaying starch breakdown, keeping your baseline blood sugar control perfectly stable. Actionable management step number 4 focuses on strictly finalizing your dinner timeline before 7 p.m. while completely crushing any late-night snacking habits afterward. This continuous 12 to 14-hour empty window extending to the following dawn represents your supreme biological cellular regeneration cycle. When your stomach remains completely vacant during sleep, your system expends zero bioenergy on digestion, concentrating all resources on structural DNA self-repair while reinforcing your endothelium. Actionable management step number 5 is exceptionally powerful, incorporating a continuous 15-minute stationary soleus muscle calf raise routine during late afternoon hours. This seated movement intensely activates your lower leg soleus muscle architecture, the singular muscle mass possessing a unique biological capacity, automatically vacuuming glucose directly out of circulation to burn for physical fuel independently, requiring zero assistance from insulin keys currently resisted by cells, locking sugar at perfect baselines. To successfully transform today's complex scientific knowledge into a practical protective weapon safeguarding your framework and endothelium, I want to provide a concise, clinical communication protocol consisting of 3 strategic queries to discuss directly with your healthcare provider during your hospital appointment. When you confidently present these highly informed academic queries, you force the physician to concentrate on constructing a personalized secondary prevention framework tailored precisely for your physical status. Strategic query number 1, you strictly need to present to your physician targets your personalized baseline target HbA1c and blood pressure thresholds. Please subscribe and like this video right now to join us in spreading authentic, meaningful healthcare solutions across the community. This crucial query forces the clinical conversation toward establishing a clear biological milestone, allowing you to accurately evaluate the real-world efficiency of your daily cellular self-cleaning protocols. Strategic query number 2 you strictly must discuss during your clinic appointment is: given my structural vascular risks driven by chronic atherosclerotic plaques, am I an appropriate candidate to undergo a duplex carotid ultrasound behind the neck to accurately measure intima-medial thickness, IMT, to screen for fragile plaques? This question advances your medical dialogue into specialized neuroimaging dimensions, completely exposing underlying arterial threats inside your cervical vessels before devastating complications erupt and ruthlessly strip away physical freedom. High-resolution diagnostic neuroimaging evaluations function as the supreme key to thoroughly map out silent lacunar infarct scars expanding inside deep cerebral networks. Geriatric neurology strongly recommends undergoing a high-resolution brain MRI scan slice evaluation to identify localized white matter degradation early over chronological aging. Strategic query number 3, you strictly need to ask to finalize your protective shield over your central nervous system is: on my high-resolution brain structural MRI scan slices, are there any visible microscopic vessel damages or silent lacunar infarct lesions expanding inside the deep cerebral cortex frameworks? Presenting this complete trio of strategic queries demonstrates that you represent a highly informed individual possessing profound wisdom during your personal journey to safeguard your physical freedom and cognitive clarity across lifespan, maintaining peak physical vitality while shielding your intracranial white matter from afar. Widespread older adults fall into dangerous traps of passivity, assuming chronic fatigue or skeletal joint discomfort merely represent natural aging, submissively allowing chronological time to pass. Standard structural physical checkups remain completely blind to fragile atherosclerotic plaques expanding inside your carotid pathways behind the neck, without utilizing specialized functional tests like a duplex carotid ultrasound to measure intima-medial thickness metrics. Fragile plaques can easily rupture under early morning mechanical shear stress, launching embolic strokes. Comprehending this entire synchronized biological threat network grants you the exact medical roadmap to construct a comprehensive metabolic shield protecting your framework from afar. I am Dr. Elias Thorne from the trusted medical organization Boston Community Health. Our professional mission is to deliver honest, international evidence-based geriatric knowledge without fear-mongering to help you assume absolute autonomy over your well-being. Your skeletal network and circulatory fluid remain completely priceless assets, deserving your highest level of wise maintenance daily through correct biomechanical steps. Your skeletal framework represents an incredibly dynamic living infrastructure that undergoes continuous biological remodeling. Daily, specialized osteoclast cells aggressively desolve and evacuate old, microdamaged bone tissues compromised by routine mechanical forces during movement. Immediately afterward, active osteoblast elements utilize circulating calcium and collagen matrix components to construct highly resilient new bone architectures. However, when your system becomes toxic due to hyperinsulinemia and critical vitamin K2 deficits, this natural cycle shatters completely, heavily reducing bone mineral density and accelerating knee joint degeneration. To sustain peak joint articulation at age 90, the Japanese avoid intense bodybuilding routines that inflict mechanical shear stress on cartilage surfaces. They remained deeply loyal to radio Teiso, gentle morning calisthenics designed to stimulate every joint network systematically. These graceful rotational movements aggressively prompt the synovial membrane to secrete abundant joint fluid to nourish cartilage, boosting localized microcirculation to bone endings. This lifestyle secret perfectly prevents severe joint dryness and meniscal wear, allowing them to maintain fluid, completely pain-free mobility across their entire chronological lifespan. Your entire cardiovascular infrastructure and endothelial lining endure massive mechanical forces from daily blood circulation patterns. When atherosclerotic plaques gradually expand due to toxic lipid accumulation and aberrant calcium deposits, your carotid pathways become dangerously narrow. The ultimate neurological threat resides in the thin fibrous cap shielding these fragile plaques. If this protective tissue layers remain unstable, abrupt early morning blood pressure surges can easily rupture the cap, launching embolic clots straight into deep cerebral networks, causing devastating ischemic strokes. Becoming highly wise regarding your whole food nutritional selection represents the absolute initial step to lift metabolic stress straining your pancreas. Instead of consuming heavily processed factory foods loaded with hazardous commercial preservatives, the Japanese prioritize raw, unadulterated nutrients. Consuming cold water fatty fish dense in organic omega-3 fatty acids heavily dampens systemic inflammation, softening cellular membranes while maximizing arterial elasticity metrics. This represents a foundational dietary framework to keep your endothelial lining perfectly smooth, permanently neutralizing underlying carotid vascular hardening risks over time. Chronic insulin resistance never limits its destruction to liver tissues via fatty infiltration, but aggressively ravages your brain's white matter architecture. When cerebral neurons become entirely saturated with sugar and refuse insulin signals, they enter metabolic starvation despite elevated circulatory glucose metrics. This pathological failure triggers a low-grade inflammatory cytokine cascade, systematically dismantling fragile neural synapse connections over time. Active autophagy functions as the absolute singular rescue mechanism to reverse this cognitive decline by destroying and recycling disabled mitochondrial structures. Implementing a clinically validated autophagy activation protocol at home represents the absolute ultimate management strategy to fully restore physical freedom. Patiently execute these scheduled active fasting windows to permanently reverse structural functional declines, limiting your entire circulatory framework. Soluble dietary fiber extracted from dark leafy greens functions exactly like a silent biological guardian inside your digestive tract. When you consume fibers, first before starches, adhering to sequenced dining frameworks, soluble components absorb water to expand, constructing a protective gel mesh along your small intestinal mucosa. This natural barrier successfully traps and delays glucose absorption into circulation, permanently blocking dangerous post-meal early afternoon insulin surges. This lifestyle approach effortlessly removes destructive mechanical shear stress straining your endothelium. When finalizing your dinner timeline before 7 p.m. and maintaining a completely vacant stomach overnight, a biological miracle unfolds. Your lymphatic system, the specialized waste clearance infrastructure of your brain, accelerates its operational capacity tenfold. It forcefully pumps cerebrospinal fluid through neural spaces to thoroughly wash away toxic amyloid beta protein debris accumulated during daytime activities. This mechanical clearance sweeps out neurological waste materials, safeguarding your intracranial white matter to deliver profoundly restorative deep sleep states. The systemic anti-inflammatory power of fermented inputs like natto or miso resides inside their capacity to rebuild your gut microbiome infrastructure. A flourishing microbiome aggressively synthesizes organic short-chain fatty acids that transmit direct biological signals to your brain center via the gut-brain axis. These clinical pathways heavily suppress toxic cortisol levels, completely extinguishing low-grade chronic inflammatory reactions, eroding your skeletal joints. Maintaining these fermented options daily delivers an exceptionally wise and efficient secondary prevention framework over a lifespan. Centenarians on an Okinawa island never perceive stopping consumption early or extending brief fasting windows as painful physical deprivation. To their culture, this represents highly disciplined self-respect, honoring the sacred temple of the human physique. This lifelong discipline perfectly preserves their vascular infrastructure, sustaining immaculate endothelial lining and absolute arterial elasticity past age 100. Instead of relying upon luxurious medical technologies, they command biological destiny through nature's wisdom, offering a profound awakening lesson for our modern lifestyle. Late-night snacking habits and sleep deprivation function as a toxic biological death sentence, destroying your cellular mitochondrial power plants. When forcing proteins and starches into your system at midnight, your physiology must divert massive blood volumes toward your gastrointestinal tract. This catastrophic sequence completely blocks autophagy structural DNA self-repair, allowing wild-free radicals to accumulate unchecked. These volatile compounds aggressively attack your endothelial lining, constructing silent lacunar infarct scars inside deep brain tissues. Overaging. An exceptionally efficient supportive management step involves taking a 15-minute barefoot walk on fresh green grass early in the morning. This physical grounding interacting alongside morning sunlight coaxes your cutaneous tissues to synthesize massive volumes of endogenous vitamin D3 molecules. Vitamin D3 operates intensely as a powerful master hormone, maximizing intestinal calcium absorption efficiency, while working in perfect synchrony with vitamin K2 to lock calcium ions directly inside your skeletal bone matrix. The soleus muscle calf raise routine can be utilized with extreme flexibility right at your office corporate desk. When sitting continuously for extended hours stagnates your circulatory fluids. Execute the stationary heel elevation movement repeatedly. Your lower leg soleus muscle infrastructure functions precisely as a secondary mechanical pump, propelling venous blood return upward toward your heart, continuously consuming surplus glucose directly out of your bloodstream without requiring insulin assistance, protecting vascular health. The potent egg molecules inside organic green tea never limit their action to clearing free radicals, but actively preserve white matter integrity. Intracranial white matter functions precisely like biological fiber optic cables transmitting information across various brain lobes. When microscopic vessels suffer degradation driven by chronic glucose elevations, white matter structures undergo severe progressive degeneration. Egg shields the delicate endothelial lining of these tiny vessels, maximizing oxygenation parameters to sustain sharp, responsive cognitive processing speed. Constructing a comprehensive biological metabolic shield represents the ultimate management track to perfectly safeguard your aging knee joints. Elias Thorne, nodding with a supportive and confident smile, looking intensely into the lens to deliver an impactful conclusion. Professional office, 4K. Chronic knee joint discomfort never represents basic mechanical wear and tear driven solely by chronological aging. It serves as a red alert indicating low-grade chronic systemic inflammation, where toxic cytokines continuously break down fragile meniscal cartilage cells. When consuming heavy processed carbohydrate volumes and adopting sedentary behaviors, toxic visceral fat layers wrapping around your liver continuously flood these inflammatory markers into circulation, aggressively accelerating joint matrix destruction. Your personalized systolic blood pressure metric early in the morning functions as a critical benchmark reflecting underlying carotid arterial spasms behind the neck. Sudden mechanical pressure surges upon leaving your bed can easily detach unstable atherosclerotic plaques adhering along your vascular pathways. Utilizing the traditional Par-Hatch-Ibu framework combined with organic green tea deeply dampens sympathetic nervous hyperactivation, anchoring blood pressure metrics at perfectly safe parameters, successfully halting early morning stroke emergencies. The highest level of wise health management requires proactively seeking high-resolution functional and diagnostic imaging evaluations down the chronological line. Never submissively abandon your medical destiny to routine, superficial physical checkups, which remain completely blind to underlying microscopic vessel damages. Actively communicating with your clinical provider to undergo a duplex carotid ultrasound and brain structural MRI scan slices constructs your absolute ultimate defensive shield, safeguarding your cognitive clarity. An exceptionally powerful auxiliary management step incorporates a continuous 10-minute quadriceps muscle stretching routine every single evening. When your front thigh quadriceps fibers become severely tight from prolonged sitting, they mechanically pull your patellar upward, maximizing destructive frictional stress, destroying the cartilage matrices. Executing adaptive gentle elongations completely frees your joints' structural range of motion, boosting rich microcirculation to your meniscus tissues, permanently erasing chronic knee discomfort. Colon-silent lacunar infarct lesions expand exactly like microscopic vessel scars buried deep inside cerebral frameworks that have completely suffocated and died. They never trigger catastrophic hemiplegia symptoms abruptly over one night, but ruthlessly erode your cognitive sharpness and baseline memory day after day. Without triggering autophagy self-cleaning and aggressively managing chronic insulin resistance, these necrotic scars will continuously multiply, permanently destroying your intracranial white matter architecture over aging. Wise calcium consumption never relies upon ingesting inorganic calcium chemical supplements, which easily deposit inside vessels to drive embolic strokes. Harvest organic bioavailable calcium directly from whole foods, synchronized with natural vitamin K2 concentrated inside traditional miso soup or fermented natto frameworks. This natural biological sequence guarantees that free calcium ions travel accurately into your skeletal bone matrix, keeping your endothelial lining perfectly smooth, permanently blocking carotid, arterial hardening behind the neck. Elias Thorne, with an earnest, sincere, and deeply compassionate demeanor, looking directly at the viewer with stable eye contact, warm professional setting, 4K, order your physique exactly like a sacred temple, refusing to transform your biological systems into a stagnant landfill of processed overnutrition. Please click like, subscribe to Boston Community Health, and comment your preferred wellness option tonight below. Thank you so much, and see you next time.